Listen, I'll be honest, I don't love this new moon in Capricorn. Not because it's bad astrology, of course that's not a thing, but because it asks a bit more of us than we might feel capable of giving right now. But this isn't about pushing harder. It's about building something that can actually last. I'm Whitney Kranz, I'm your mystic sis and your astro bestie. And if you know me, you know it is my God's given duty to translate the otherworldly wisdom of the cosmos into down-to-earth insights. The House of Good Spirit, this place, is where we gather to learn about the lunations and how to move forward with them toward our hopes, our dreams, and our wishes for the future. Be sure to like and subscribe because I am working on some new projects, including Astro Style episodes that you'll want to keep track of. Not sure what the heck Astro Style is? Well, you'll get a little taste of it at the end of this episode. So, this new moon in Capricorn takes place on Sunday, January 18th at 1:51 p.m. That's Central Time, and it happens at 28 degrees Capricorn. Yes, you heard that. We have another late degree new moon upon us. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, in the short term, I don't like this new moon. It just feels uncomfortable, folks. It is asking us to stretch beyond our limits. Now, you likely don't even have to read the news right now to understand that we are in a time of general chaos right now, especially following that triple conjunction, the Sun, Venus, and Mars in Capricorn last week. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing this new moon really giving us any reprieve. It is giving this energy of you're like exhausted and depressed, or you're motivated and manic. There is no in between. The lunation isn't a quick rebound, but in the long run, this lunation is helping us to create systems and frameworks and to understand both preparation and perseverance. So why at the heart of it does this new moon feel a little bit uncomfortable? Well, because the moon you see in Capricorn is in its detriment, quite literally depressed. And when I say depressed, I don't mean like sadness depressed, more like compression when you want space, or a lack of nurturance when you just need a little bit of love. You might feel with a moon in Capricorn that you are carrying a heavy weight right now. But what is beautiful and redeeming about a moon in Capricorn is that work becomes a creative act for the Capricorn moon. It is like responsibility as an act of service. What this often does for the person born with a Capricorn moon is actually instill that sort of provider energy deep within them. Capricorn moons learn to express love through responsibility. Now, the rest of the context of this new moon in Capricorn, well, there's a little bit of lightning and a lot of planning involved. So let's talk about it. This new moon is conjunct Mercury and Mars, right? The moon is at 28 degrees and Mercury and Mars have just exactly conjoined this same day at 26 degrees. Now, this Mercury and Mars conjunction is significant because it is the third of 6 conjunctions that are happening from fall 2025 through spring 2026. So as we're tracking and predicting what this weekend might feel like, I think a good place to start would be to go back to your journal and try to notice some themes. The first Mercury-Mars conjunction happened for us on October 20th at 19 degrees Scorpio. Some of the key words I attached to Mercury and Mars conjoining in Scorpio were words like sneaky, special forces, cunning. And what's interesting about that conjunction is that started this larger, longer period through the middle of December where we had these really potent, moving, and surprisingly heavy grand water trines. Now, the second Mercury-Mars conjunction was on November 12th in Sagittarius at 6 degrees. And Mercury was actually retrograde during this conjunction and in Mercury's detriment. Mars was much stronger in this position, kind of like Mars is much stronger here in its exaltation in this particular conjunction in Capricorn. Now, I associated that conjunction with a feeling of brawn over brains, even a little bit of that Sag nihilism perhaps winning out, like what is it all for? But we don't want to dwell too much on the past, right? What are we talking about here for this Capricorn new moon conjunct Mercury and Mars? Well, a Mercury and Mars in Capricorn is definitely solution-oriented. It is a get the job done type of energy. We're getting like best laid plans. And there's some nuance in that term, right? Because best laid plans taken at face value, well, it sounds like a good plan, right? But the term best laid plans actually implies that our best laid plans don't quite work out. We've got, with Mercury and Mars here, a very deliberate, tactile, strategic sense of movement. We've got preparation and perseverance. Just like that Scorpio Mercury-Mars conjunction may have felt cunning or a bit like special forces, I do wonder if there are some sort of covert ops to this Mercury-Mars conjunction, conjunct the new moon. But we know the trickster as Mercury and Mars as the warrior. Together, the trickster and the warrior and the luminaries are asking for a strategic path forward. But as they say, folks, that's not all. Because this new moon is also sextile to Saturn and Neptune exactly, and trine Uranus. It's forming this wedge in the sky, and what it's bringing through is big energy. We will feel this collectively. Now, we know Saturn is the ruler of this new moon. Saturn rules Capricorn. If you want to know more about all of the Capricorn dignities, I did an excellent episode with Alexandra Blair and Sarah Posh on the Nightlight Astrology channel, our Weekend Wisdom series. It was a couple Saturdays ago, and we dove deep into Capricorn. So also having covered Capricorn energy in my Astro Style video this week, you're not getting that full, intense, archetypal Capricorn treatment, but I promise you those themes, those Saturnian themes of steadfastness, this feeling of working for it, the test of time, the growth journey, the maturity that Saturn requires are all coming through here. Now, if Saturn is the ruler and is sextile here, you also noticed Mars in its exaltation here in Capricorn is conjunct. So it's funny because I say I don't love this new moon, and you're like, Whitney, this new moon is well dignified, as astrologers say. But just because it's well dignified doesn't mean it's comfy. Remember, Capricorn is ruled by what we call in ancient astrology both of our malefics. Malefic energy is not easy energy. Now, the way I'm seeing this, with Saturn and Neptune and Uranus involved, there's like a Capricorn new moon formula brewing. And I'm taking that strategy of the Mercury-Mars conjunction, combining it with this vision that the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Pisces lends us, and adding in a little, or maybe a lot, of disruption to create long-term growth. If we were writing a recipe, it would be 1 part lasting vision, 2 parts motivated strategy, and 2 parts disruption through that Uranus trine. So what we're getting here is that strategy under pressure. But we know that growth does not happen in perfect conditions. Growth happens when the system is stressed, but still standing. And that's the key. So let's talk about the themes then. What does this mean? I have 2 main themes for you. The first of which is breaking down or cracking open. We talked at length about the strategy behind this new moon. So how can cracking something open, how can breaking something down be strategic? I'm looking at it like the strategic break in a bone that a bone needs to heal. There's something here in Capricorn that has broken and or started growing. over the last couple of weeks. Now, when we talk about a Cap moon and we know that it's in its detriment or depression, as they say, I actually like to think of this depression in a way when we have a new moon under this dark sky, this low energy, more as repression. It's that Capricornian new moon sense of repression that actually creates the pressure. But I don't think in all scenarios that this is the type of pressure that crushes. I think it's the type of pressure that expands, that grows. After all, with Uranus involved here, we know that Uranus can bring us a fresh start in the form of liberation. Uranus creates cracks in the facade of the things that are no longer working in our life. Now, this may sound kind of bleak, the way that I'm talking about this inner darkness, but this is something that must be confronted under a Capricorn new moon. And the thing about this inner darkness is that if there is any sign in the zodiac that is primed for an underdog story, it is Capricorn. Because while a Capricorn moon may feel like it can't reach its full mode of expression, deep inside the Capricorn archetype is ambition and honor, the will to live and the will to work. And so the image that forms for me under this new moon is one of the armor cracking as the warrior's initiation. On a more personal level, it's like there's someone inside us making plans for the future, planning success and craving honor. But like we've created this hard shell of an exterior for our own protection, because otherwise we dare being hurt from being vulnerable. And so it's under this new moon that armor begins to crack, and it will slowly reveal the power held within. I think in this way, this new moon in Capricorn is a gift because it is helping us break free of our self-imposed limits. Think about the Devil card in tarot. Oh yes, it strikes fear in the hearts of tarot novices around the globe. But the Devil card is actually quite simple. The Devil card speaks of materialism, ambition, the things that keep us chained. It's our earthly delights, right? And so what's happening here is that this lunation is asking us to look at the limits that we've internalized and whether they're actually protecting us anymore. And I want to emphasize, and this brings me to my second theme, that this new moon is all about the long game. That long game of chess, the strategic game that requires time and patience. Why is that? Well, it's a moon and Saturn sign, first of all, and Saturn makes us wait. Saturn presents delay with purpose. But we also have the fact that it's one of these late degree new moons, which means that the new beginnings, they don't quite stick right away. I think it's also significant, and I won't go deep into it, but immediately following this new moon, after the moon enters Aquarius, we enter the Hellenistic definition of a void of course moon. The moon, she cannot get purchase. She is what they said in ancient times, running in the void. And so while there are no immediate sprouting of the seeds that are being planted, this is a dramatic lunation cycle overall. And I'm not talking about the 1 month lunation cycle. That is dramatic too, because we're poised just on the edge of eclipse season. Not to mention all of these planets after this new moon, they all enter Aquarius to conjoin Pluto. So there is some deep excavation at work. But I'm talking about our 6 month moon cycle, the one in which this new moon in Capricorn peaks with the full moon in Capricorn on June 29th. Now, under that full moon, we have Mars and Uranus conjoined in the early degrees of Gemini. We have Saturn in a T-square to this full moon. Jupiter is poised at the entrance of Leo, and Mercury is stationing retrograde under that full moon. It almost represents a rebreaking or a reckoning. What's starting now will be tested later. But okay, I'm being kind of dark here, guys, aren't I? There is hope, and this is why. It's like building plans. This lunation, this whole cycle is the scaffolding that's going up. Remember, Capricorn is the gateway to the gods, right? So under this new moon, we are creating the plans to build our stairway to heaven. It's the scaffolding to support our new growth. And if I know anything about construction, which is not a lot, but enough, it's that first comes the plan, right? That's this new moon plus Mercury and Mars. Then comes the demo, the excavation, the earthwork. That's the Pluto conjunctions, eclipse season. And then the building can begin. That's all happening in the astrology from March to June. Now, what that means then is when we reach our full moon moment at the very end of June, that's when the inspector comes around and is knocking on the walls, right? Are these sound? Is what you're building now on a firm foundation for sound growth? And listen, it takes grit to play the long game. It takes courage to have patience. I'm reminded about the most Saturnian song that I know in the world. I think, in fact, that I quoted this maybe a few months back. You can let me know in the comments if you remember. Do we have any Hamilton fans out there? Well, there is a song from Hamilton called Wait for It. And it goes a little something like this. No, I am not going to sing it. It goes, I am the only thing in life I can control. Later it says, I am not falling down or running late. I am not standing still. I am lying in wait. And then the song addresses the namesake, Hamilton, and says, Hamilton faces an endless uphill climb. That's us. We've got something to prove, and we've got nothing to lose. This song comes to me very often these days as I'm just finishing up my own Saturn square and being tested with the patience to persevere. And so just because we're playing the long game here, we gotta wait for it, right? It doesn't mean we can't work with it now. In fact, I think we need to work with it now to be able to create, like I mentioned, that most sound structure we can. So, of course, I have a few reflections for you. So ask yourself these questions. If you're a journaler, I strongly recommend you take some time aside on Sunday and spend a little time with yourself, asking what systems in your life are no longer sustainable in their current form. Are you using the right tools for the job right now? The right tools for the job you're looking to accomplish? One of those tools being your attitude. Do you have the right attitude right now? Where possibly have you confused endurance with emotional armor? And finally, what would a strategic next step look like rather than an emotional reaction? And as big a fan of journaling as I am, I'm even more a fan of integrating the transits through what I like to call Astro Style. Astro Style is all about dressing for the planetary energy. It's almost like we're using our body as the altar and decorating our body in such a way that honors these energies in order to help move with them and through them as smoothly as possible. So under a new moon in Capricorn, you know I'm asking, what does this job require? And I'm dressing for it. I'm also thinking about the concept of armor that we talked about, the cracks in the armor, the facade that you put on. What do you wear for armor? You know I'm going to talk about the quintessential black hoodie here, right? I also think the oversized leather bomber jacket is where it's at, right? What makes you feel protected? Is it an oversized black blazer, perhaps? Now, you know that I've mentioned black already 12 times in the last 12 seconds. Well, that's because Saturn ruled Capricorn demands that dark neutral. But in response to my Astro Style episode last week, I got a really great comment from Subpar Astrologer, I believe that's who it was, who has transitioned her neutrals away from black toward brown. And I love that deep chocolate brown that is trending for Capricorn. After all, Capricorn is an earth sign. It just makes sense. Now, Capricorn is also, tough exterior, right? But Capricorn is a feminine sign. So I think you have room here to play with your silhouettes, to feel beautiful in what you wear, but to also feel like you can kick some ass. Like, I'm thinking about shit-kicking boots for this lunation, like a good old pair of Doc Martens. Now, on the neutral train, I love a good charcoal. Hi, that's what I'm repping today. And you know what? If you want to get creative, if you're like, Whitney, I can't wear a huge jacket all the time, I'm hanging out inside most of the day, get creative with your necklines. How about a turtleneck or a funnel neck? Look at this. I love this Varley top I'm wearing because, I can just hide. And that feels good sometimes. Now, if all of this seems a little dark, remember that this lunation is trine Uranus. And Uranus, when we look at fashion, is a pop of color, a pop of texture, a pop of print, right? Uranus goes pop. So where is the unexpected surprise in your wardrobe? Think about that this weekend and throughout the next week. In fact, over the following week, as these planets conjoin Pluto, I love some of this deep, dark energy that comes forth. It's giving metallic accents, sort of that gunmetal, not straight silver, right? But that tungsten or gunmetal tone would be beautiful. I hope you noticed my accessories. It actually wasn't planned. I don't wear my glasses a lot when I record because look at these awful reflections of my ring lights. Yes, I need my ring lights, but glasses, whether they're blue light or functional, that's a perfect sort of nod to that Mercury-Mars strategy we've been talking about. It's funny because I said Saturn-Neptune as this vision or long-term vision or long-range vision. And that's what I need these for. But there's also, right, a sort of restrained energy to Capricorn with it being a Saturn-ruled sign and all. I think under this lunation, the best way to style your hair is in a tight, high bun or simply pulled back. Functional doesn't mean it's unfashionable. Tell me in the comments if you are digging these Astro Style segments. What are you inspired to wear under this lunation? I'm also interested in hearing overall what you are growing right now, what you are going through and growing through right now under all of this major and kind of majorly uncomfortable astrology. Drop it in the chat. And I want to leave you with this thought. You are not behind. You are not late. You're building something that requires patience, and patience is a form of power. Now, with that, I will certainly see you in 2 weeks for the full moon in Leo here in the House of Good Spirit. And I'm hoping if life doesn't get too much more crazy, that I can get you another Astro Style episode next week. Stay tuned, stay patient, and stay blessed under this new moon in Capricorn.